All right, welcome everyone to this, my version of CrewTube. Crew had mentioned on the message board today that I should do the episode this week because he was kind enough to do the weekly wrap up. I jumped on top of it only because I don't have to teach tomorrow. Tomorrow's a PD day, so my workload isn't as hectic tonight as it has been over the past 2 weeks. Normally, this time in the week, I'd give you guys a weekly idea that popped in my head, and normally would present it to you guys on our league website. I wanted to do one last week, didn't get the opportunity to because I was busy. So I figured I'd bring that thought to you guys live, in color, in person, a la CrewTube this week. Like I had mentioned to you guys, I recently have been topped off at school. It's been a little overwhelming thus far because of the amount of work that I've had to do over the past couple weeks, picking up the pieces for the guy that I'm filling in for, and making the courses that I'm teaching now my own for the rest of the year. It's been tremendously busy. I can't, begin to tell you guys and go into detail how much work I've had to do after school. And how much of a change it has been for me over the past 2 weeks to go from substituting for the past couple years to now officially being a full-time teacher. The transition has been crazy, so crazy that the amount of time for my extracurricular activities has been hindered. And that's the thought I want to bring to you guys. I was thinking about lately how much time it takes to be a dedicated winning fantasy football champion. The past couple years, I've had a lot of time on my hands, as some of you may know. Being a substitute, you get to kind of leave your job at your job. There's no prep. And when you're done at 2:30 in the afternoon, you've got a lot of time to sit down and dedicate yourself to your family, and as well as, obviously, fantasy football. Over the past 2 weeks, for the first time in 3 or 4 years, I officially don't feel prepared as much as I should be on a weekly basis for fantasy football. Obviously, I check the site every day, every few hours. I check Roto World whenever I can. But I still feel like there's an edge that I'm missing that I used to have. And that edge usually came because of the extra allotted time I could spend towards fantasy football. Now, because of this new job, time isn't necessarily on my side all the time. And obviously my career has to take precedence over fantasy football. It's sad to hear me say that. But obviously it's the truth. I still make it a point. I'm still dedicated. Still here, still your commissioner, going to do everything I do normally. But in terms of me being a manager of my own team, of the two-time defending champion Newfoundland Nightmare, I feel like I've sort of stepped back a little bit in terms of the edge that I used to think I had over you 11 suckers. Winning in a championship in fantasy football takes several things. It takes luck. It takes a certain knowledge of the game of football, of the teams that are in the NFL, knowing, those teams that have a West Coast offense, that are a running football team, that have strong defenses, strong safeties, strong corners. It takes a good knowledge of the game of football, but it also takes time and dedication. Being able to put the time in during the course of a day, every day for 4 months, goes a long way in terms of being successful, being able to field a team on a weekly basis, making accurate and appropriate waiver selections when that time comes around on a weekly basis. Sure, you can be last in the league and get a good waiver pick every week, but when you have been successful, such as myself, the Johnny Banfields, the Owen Crows, when you have perennially been successful, when you're always shafted to the back of that waiver wire, you sort of have to filter past those guys that you know you're not going to get. The guys that Sean cleans up on every week, Tim, my old man, sometimes, those guys who have been, for the lack of a better word, shit for the past few seasons, they're always going to get the hot waiver wire names. Whereas, again, guys like myself, not trying to toot my own horn too much, but we've had success being at the back of the waiver wire. Brandon finally knows what that feels like. You really have to dig deep in terms of trying to get guys that are going to have value 2 or 3 weeks in advance. I used to think that I had that edge, but again, for the first time in 3 or 4 years, I definitely don't feel like I have that inside edge, that I am one-upping someone somewhere down the road. I'm going in every week hoping, not necessarily knowing that something's going to work out my way based on choices and decisions that I've made prior to that. It's been a crapshoot for me. I've been successful, knock on wood for the most part, 4-3 at this point of the year. But a lot of that, could be flat out luck. The team that I have now, is it as good as the teams I've had in the past? Yes and no. There's elements to my team this year that I've definitely never had in the past. I have a couple running backs, if they can stay healthy, that have been my best 1-2 combo in a long time. Hurting in the wide receiver position. Greg Jennings is amazing. He's the man. But obviously Reggie Wayne's a piece of shit. And as far as a wide receiver 3 goes, I'm basically playing a crapshoot every week. And that wide receiver 3 position, over the past 2 years, you've seen it. I've made decisions to get a guy who ended up being an amazing person at that position. It was Miles Austin in 2009. Stole him off waivers. He was my wide receiver 3 who played like a wide receiver 1 every week for the rest of the year. Last year, it was Kenny Britt. Made a trade for him. He got banged up, but he had one monstrous game, and he got banged up, came back, and was in every week wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 in some weeks, playing as my 3rd wide receiver. And again, those were decisions that I felt that I made that benefited me. Maybe not for that one given week, but again, decisions that I thought I made based on an edge that I had, because I got to spend so much time reading and researching and just flat out being a fantasy football nerd week in and week out. So, long story short, fantasy football is time consuming, and those who are successful at it, Adam Crow, it takes time and it takes dedication. And again, I don't think I got that anymore. I don't think for the past few weeks I've got that edge, and it flat out sucks. But it is what it is. I'm going to maintain. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fielding a team that I think is going to win a game every week. Reggie Wayne's going to continue to rot away my starting lineup. But that's just it. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today were my middle of the pack, week 7, first half of the year All-Stars. We're going into week 8, so we're officially on the second half of the regular season for fantasy football, for our league anyway. So I figured, hey, let's give you, I'm going to give you my All-Stars. I'm going to give you to them by position, excluding obviously defensive players and kickers. They're interchangeable. But in terms of quarterbacks, wideouts, running backs, and I've got a flex All-Star for you here, here's who I think are the All-Stars at their certain positions. At quarterback, the one and only Mr. Aaron Rodgers. and deservedly so. Johnny's boy for the Green Bay Packers, the defending Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers, has been a fucking stud this year. The man is going to win the offensive NFL MVP. There's no doubt in my mind. You know, in terms of fantasy football, you can't get a better quarterback. The guy averages 22 to 30 points a week. You know he's good for 3 touchdowns. He may even run one in. He, seldomly throws interceptions. And he's just one of those guys you can plug in a quarterback and he's going to be there. He's going to do awesome things all year round. Aaron Rodgers is by far the best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. What he's doing in Green Bay this year is just phenomenal. And so he gets my MVP for quarterback. At running back, Fred Jackson, ladies and gentlemen. F-Jax, Freddie Jax. Not sure where Johnny picked him up, what round he got him in, but holy fuck, has the value for that guy been phenomenal. I mean, heading into the season, I think a lot of people were saying that C.J. Spiller was going to get involved. Fuck that. Fred Jackson's a fucking beast. The guy, I think he's averaged something like 20 points a game for Johnny this year. He has gone far and beyond anything that I think anyone could have ever dreamed of. Even Johnny. There's no way Johnny drafted Fred Jackson knowing he was going to be the best running back in the NFL this year. Fuck no. Absolutely not. The guy's been a stud. If he continues the way he's been playing in the second half of the year, Johnny, with Aaron Rodgers, is going to have a good shot to make some noise. Those two guys alone are a dangerous tandem, a dangerous combo to have, starting for you each and every week. So F-Jax, running back, all-star. Wide receiver. The one and only, the beast, in Detroit City, Megatron, Calvin Johnson. Holy fuck, can that guy jump really high in the air. He's got, 9, 10 touchdowns on the year. Matthew Stafford, who's also played really well, looks for him often, all the time, especially in the second half. I find a lot of times Andrew squeaks through the first half. He hasn't got a lot of points on the board. It doesn't look like it looks like Stafford and Johnson are going to have a mediocre game. Then all of a sudden, Detroit, Stafford airs out a 40-yard bomb, just throws it up, jump ball in the air, and Calvin Johnson seems to come up with it almost each